The Women's Liberation Movement. The women's movement started with the Seneca Falls Convention in New York, where a group of activists met to discuss women's lack of rights. Women got the vote in 1920, marking a victory for the movement. But with the hardship of World War II, women had lost sight of their initial goals. When the civil rights movement became the focus of the 1960s, women regained motivation to change their circumstances, especially after the publication of The Feminine Mystique. So with women's suffrage legalized after the first wave, what were women even liberated from? This is a commercial that captures the ideal women before the second wave that had come out in support of the election for Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1956, shortly before the second wave started to take form.
This year there are 54 million women eligible to vote, 2.5 million more women than men, enough to decide the whole election. And as November 6th draws near, you women are doing a lot of thinking about a lot of important things.
As you can see, though women officially were included in politics, they were not taken seriously to the point that having political opinions of their own seemed ridiculous to the public. As depicted in the Post article in the year 1962, the average woman for whom American society was geared toward was 35 years old, had 2 children, but was hoping for a third, and was a full-time homemaker. She had completed 3 years of high school and had been happily married for 14 years. And unstated though this was, she was white. Of course this was not true at all. A month later, Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, was published, which challenged this disillusioned idea of the average American woman. Contrary to popular belief, sex discrimination was a term that had already existed before the publication of Friedan's book. But The Feminine Mystique gave the guilt, depression, and sense of hopelessness many housewives felt a name. Here's an excerpt of another one of Friedan's works, It Changed My Life, Writings on the Women's Movement. No one will hand women anything except cheap dreams of perpetual youth, the limbo of passive, effortless, unlived days. The new dreams, the real dreams women must make come true themselves. There are real problems yet to be solved before this world becomes a truly human world, and woman no longer walks as a freak in the man's world of art and science, war and politics, exerting a power she does not really enjoy in the women's world of home. Man is not the enemy here, but the fellow victim. The real enemy is women's denigration of themselves, fostered by the feminine mystique.
We all thought we died and gone to heaven when Betty Friedan came to speak to the school. She was radical, but she expressed what we all had thought all along, that that man is not the enemy here, but the fellow victim. We believed that. I do agree with the quote. My mother was the older generation, and she was very resistant to a woman's place is in the home. That was always the way I have one of 2 sisters. That's the way that we were raised. When my father came home from work, we had to comb our hair and put on lipstick because the man was coming home. I think Mother, I know, was very resistant to the whole ideological issues with which we were dealing. It affected my life because it affected decisions that I made as a woman. I never let somebody tell me, you can't do that because you're a woman. It was really the first time women began to think of themselves as empowered, as the same as men, as in the workplace, for instance, that we could do anything a man could do.
Friedan repeatedly emphasized that women were not coerced into their constricted lives. She saw women as being in a trap that they could choose to get out of by living their own lives again according to a self-chosen purpose.
I think it was absolutely the ideological, because I think you can't have a legal change unless there's some ideological premise to hang your hat on. Women got excited. People got excited about what she was saying, about the ideological emphasis of what she was saying. And when that happens, I think then people begin to work toward legal changes, and I think that's what happened. Everybody sort of got on board.
As soon as women realized what they wanted, they were able to take the necessary steps for a more liberated future. Though Friedan proposed expanding women's access to higher education, many women knew that this was not going to solve all problems. Childcare centers and maternity benefits were installed. Sexual objectification and abortion rights became heavily debated matters, which led to legal action. Legal action, though important, was a result of the change in ideology that happened for many women in the 1960s and 1970s after the publication of The Feminine Mystique. As soon as women knew what it was that they wanted, a life different from their mothers, they were able to come together and take steps to realize that goal and stop standing as an obstacle to themselves.